Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to my newest offering. Of course, you could be listening to this at any time, but this is a little mini story that I wrote. I don't even know why I channeled this one in quite some time ago. I don't know. This is 2026 when we're recording this. And maybe I did it like 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember now. But you'll have the full audiobook. It's very short. It's a quick listen. And the little mini story in ebook form is wherever you can find ebooks. All my ebooks are free to read at Google Books, Apple Books, Barnes & Nobles. And this is being released Beltane 2026. And let's see where this goes. As always, my stories can be imbibed in different ways. You can just see this as just a fun, cute little mini story, or you can take your experience deeper. These are channeled works of art, and they are, if you choose to take the more mystical approach, then you get kind of inserted into the magic of the container that is the story, meaning you could get your own special messages from these stories. You could have your own, you could see your own, hidden meanings out and around you, maybe on the day that you listen to them, messages meant just for you, and healing intentions. So like a story with REIKI built in kind of thing, angelic REIKI, where, if you need a healing, it's there for you. If you want it, you don't have to choose it. Or if if it's there to make you laugh, it's whatever you most need in this now is what you'll receive when you listen to any of my books or read any of my books. So take that with what you will. And if it sounds too weird, just discard all that and just listen and have a good old happy fun time listening to the story. Without further ado, this is Hive Magic. Tara and Ben, 10 bees. Tara's a mystic and Ben's a healer. And the bees are always talking. Are you listening? Chapter 1. Trust is not always where you are. Ben was outdoors, his favorite space to be in, but right now he had a lot on his mind. The hives needed tending, and among the many other things he needed to do today, his mother had called him with some new emergency that needed tending to. Tessalock homes for the slightly less agile had been a place he hadn't wanted to place his mother, but he also knew she needed the extra care that he didn't have time to give her right now. The fairy nurses at this very special assisted living and hospice were taking great care of Edwina, but as is with a loved one left in someone else's care, Ben worried a little too much. Now Edwina had called him late in the night with some tale of a frightening figure outside her window. The homes were situated slightly out of the Tessalock town center and bordered the great pine woods on one end. Edwina, who as a little girl played in the woods with the elves, gnomes, and fairies, was certain that the ogre of Orkney had come for her. She called frantic that a huge bulging creature had been staring at her when she slept at night, that this ogre had tunneled into her room and had watched her for 2 nights now. She was positive that on this 3rd night, the ogre would spirit her away to be his bride come the next full moon. And Edwina Larkin did not want to be anyone's bride, much less that of the ogre. So she had decided that Ben needed to come and take her away from the homes for the slightly less agile and allow her to come live in his guest house. Over heckin' high water, Ben thought as he looked in at the hives. Little black and yellow bodies with tiny wings buzzed about their daily chores and didn't seem to have a care in the world. Ben wondered how the bees trusted that everything would always be exactly where it needed to be. He wished that he had this magical level of trust and that he would always know exactly how life would turn out. But such is the way with the mortal world. Trust must be acquired and learned and held in great regard, for without it one buoys along, buffeted by each of life's small and large transgressions. Ben decided to work more on his trust issues while simultaneously looking at the sun and allowing it to fill him with its magical powers. From deep in the great pine woods, the ogre of Orkney waited patiently for his final night. He would have Edwina Larkin for his bride. And that was all there was to that. Chapter 2. Tara stops in her tracks. For some time now, Tara had been wanting a new start in her life, and she thought the world would stop turning after her last relationship with Kyle, the owner of Buns and Such, Tesseloc's premium bakery and workout bar. Tara knew she needed something new in her life, but she didn't know how or when this something or someone would arrive. She had seen a very kind-looking man about town one day, and she even had the guts to follow him on foot as he made his rounds about town. She watched as he visited Tesselock Library, and then she followed him as he wandered about the park drinking a latte from Beans Aren't Burnt, the local coffee shop. She noticed that he stopped in at Harry O'Malley's Animal Emporium and came out with some strange-looking box. Tara was intrigued and asked her guides to help her meet this man. She didn't really know anything about him, but from what she saw, a tender-looking soul with kind eyes and a big heart, she knew she wanted to know more. Her angel guide, Sweet Tabitha, told her the order had been received, and if it was in Tara's best interest, she could meet Ben and start a conversation. Tara, always a little shy, set the intention to meet Ben and let her wish go skyward. She didn't know how or when, but she knew from experience she needed to trust Tabitha and let it go for now. If the time was right, then everything would be set into motion, and all Tara really needed to do was show up. Chapter 3. Trust in the timing. The bees buzzed about the hive, waiting for Ben to come and check on them. They had work to do today, and it was time to get moving, but sometimes they waited until the time was right, and the moment felt energized. They swept their wings along the hive walls and waited patiently for the workers to finish depositing the yellow pollen to the hive guardians. Yellow pockets of pollen from this blossom and that were lovingly placed around the walls of each little egg chamber. The egg guardians would carefully and gently take the pollen and the propolis and use it for the good of all involved. Such was their service work, tending to the needs of the others, which in turn benefited themselves. Ben decided to go outside a little earlier than normal today and tend the hives. Something told him that the bees needed help. He put on his hood and gloves and took his smoker and headed out towards the far end of his property. He had placed the hives at the edge of the meadow that ran behind his home so they could use the flowers of the meadow for their foraging. As Ben approached the hive, he felt a strange knowingness overcome him. He had to act upon what messages were coming through. He strongly felt that if he didn't remove his mother from the homes for the slightly less agile, that she might not be there tomorrow. As soon as he finished tending the hives, he decided he was going to drive over to see her and find out what was really going on. Chapter 4. Do what you can. Ben headed out the door and made his way towards the homes for the slightly less agile. He had one errand to run first, and that was to drop by his best friend's house and pay it forward. Zachary McFarland and Ben had been friends since grade school. They'd been voted most likely to have a hangover in high school and had even decided to go to Edinburgh College together. The college had an amazing rugby team, and both Ben and Zachary had been star players in high school. Ben had been up all night making jars of lavender honey for his friends. He liked doing these types of what others considered womanly hobbies, but to him were just ways to have fun and relax. He'd made Zachary a big jar of honey and had a second-hand sweater he had gotten from Scotland over the rainbow, Tesseloc's repurposed shop. He knew it would look great on Zachary, and the light, bright colors might help cheer his friend up. Ben pulled up to Zachary's beach bungalow and could tell by the swells that a storm was blowing in. He knocked several times, but no answer. He shaded his eyes and looked further out to the bay. He could see the mast of a sailboat and the familiar Honey Ascot boat he knew so well. Ben couldn't understand why Zachary might go sailing right now when it was clear that a storm was coming. He pulled out his cell and dialed Zachary's number. Voicemail. Ben couldn't control this situation, so he made a prayer to his angel guides and asked for Zachary's safety, and then he let the matter go. He placed the jar of honey in the package with the sweater in the basket by the door and went back to the car. Now to talk to Edwina and get back home before the storm rolled in. Chapter 5. When it's cloudy, make lemonade. Tara went home from her day at the pub, and she spent a few hours each day cleaning up around her father's pub, the Golden Hours. He needed the help after his last wife, Mrs. Penny Wilmington, had left him for that cute guy who came around and delivered the coffee beans. Thomas Larkin helped the townsfolk of Tessellock and Rockaway Point each month by hosting a big town swap. Everyone could bring their items to the Golden Hours, laugh a little with their neighbors, drink pints on the house, and leave with a new-to-them sweater, bauble, or household item. Tara had been helping clean the pub from top to bottom so that it was shiny and welcoming for this month's swap on Saturday night. She was tired, but not too tired to check in on her hives. Thomas had built Tara the boxes himself and had even helped her source the bees that made up the small hive in her backyard. She took her lantern and went to check. There seemed to be quite the buzzing about before she even pulled out the trays and looked inside. There was a strong wind blowing in off the bay, but Tara's little house was nestled nicely on Big Lantern Way, and the trees from the great pine woods helped block much of the wind. But if the activity she saw inside was any indication of what was coming, Tara felt her nerves prickle. It wasn't just the storm she felt as she tapped into her inner guidance system. Something strange was happening in Tessellock tonight, and she had no power of her own to stop it. Although prayers and meditation wouldn't hurt, Tara closed the hive and went inside, taking her meditation cushion and placing it in the center of her cozy living area. She stoked the fire, and sitting gently down on her cushion, she began to say a prayer. Let's all take a deep breath together right now. We continue on with Chapter 6, Walkie-Talkie. Ben could hear something in his mind. It sounded like a voice, but not one he had heard before. It wasn't his guides. They sounded different coming in, more from the top of his head, and then around him like gentle friends in his ears. This voice sounded like a woman's, and it was gentle and kind. The voice sounded like it was praying for help and guidance, and then it seemed to speak directly to him. "All is well and you are safe," the woman's voice said around the edges of Ben's mind and heart. "I can hear you too." Ben shook the cobwebs away, but he knew this was no one trying to play in his mind. This wasn't the ghosts of friends past or angels on high. This was his beloved. Ben tried to answer back in his mind, but he wasn't sure if his answer would get through. He didn't want to overthink it. He had spoken about these encounters with his energy healer, Bernice Two Feathers, and she had patted Ben gently on the arm and in her old wise way said, "Something really good is coming for you now. Get ready, Ben." Chapter 7. Just listen. Tara, Ben, and the bees, all in their own little worlds, but somehow intrinsically connected. You, me, the world, humanity, somehow all linked together. Today, as we all focus on our own endeavors and goals, as we all strive to be better humans, let's take a moment to give thanks for all that we have. In gratitude, the vibration rises, and the soul can take over, if only for a few moments in your busy life. The bees, thankful for the strength of the hive and the protection of their keepers. Tara, thankful for her parents and her small, comfortable home. Ben, thankful for his business and the friends he's made along the way. And you, what are you thankful for, dear friend? And as we turn our sights inward to give thanks and gratitude for the bounty before us, the ogre of Orkney padded quietly along the halls of the home for the slightly less agile. He breathed in deeply and felt that his quest for his long-lost love was soon coming to a close. He dipped his ogre hand inside his pocket and pulled out the enchanted ring. And as Edwina Larkin prayed that Ben would get there sooner rather than later, the ogre of Orkney waited patiently outside the door of her room, unseen by the mortal world in his enchantment. and allowing himself to dream of his beloved. As soon as the clock struck 12, the witching hour, he would make his move. Chapter 8. The clock strikes 12. Ben lay down on the couch and closed his eyes. He felt so tired. He knew he was supposed to see Edwina tonight, but he just needed a quick nap. The stress of worrying about Zachary, the weird telepathic messages, and his busy schedule were taking a toll on him. He still had time to get to the homes for the slightly less agile, if only he could close his eyes for a moment. Edwina sat very still. I've forgotten all about this book. It's been so long. She thought she heard something in the hallway outside her apartment door, so she rang for the concierge. There was no way that ogre was coming into her room tonight. She had a foolproof plan, and Ben or no Ben, she was going to take action. Tara placed her feet up on the fluffy ottoman. She felt drowsy, and she gave in to the softness of her blanket and the warm fire in the wood stove. Her eyes closed, and she immediately felt transported. But where was she? She recalled thinking about how much nicer it would be if she could just find her true love and cuddle up with him by the fire before she drifted into a light, almost trance-like state. Ben felt like he was being watched. He woke with a start and glanced out the window. Something wispy and ethereal caught his gaze. If he looked straight at the wispy figure, he couldn't see it. But if he squinted slightly and looked more from the corner of his eyes, he could see the figure of a woman watching him just outside the window. Although he thought this was something spooky, it didn't feel like that in his heart. The womanly figure felt warm and welcoming, and Ben's heart made a little jump. He felt he knew this figure, but he couldn't remember how or where. The wispy figure disappeared, and Ben shook away the cobwebs again to the sound of the little cuckoo clock cooing away at the 9 p.m. hour. Oh, heck, Ben thought as he righted himself and picked up his coat. The figure had felt so dreamy and warm, and Ben had wanted so much to float towards it in his mind, to take the wispy woman in his arms and never let go. But he had promised Edwina he would stop by and talk about her experience with the frightening figure. He didn't want to let her down either, so he picked up his cell and dialed her number. "Mom, I'll be there in 30 minutes, he relayed to her voicemail. Edwina sat bolt upright. She knew that the time was of the essence. She clasped her chest and wailed loudly as the knock on the door signaled the concierge arriving. "Mrs. Larkin, are you all right?" he said, using his master key to unlock the door. Hearing the wailing, he feared that something was really wrong with her. Edwina continued to moan and wail, clasping her chest as he opened the door. Seeing the old woman in distress, he radioed the front desk to call for an ambulance. "Something's happened to Mrs. Larkin. I need a first responder," he said, unfazed by her condition. Such was his training to be calm in the eye of a storm. Edwina hoped above all else that the ambulance would arrive to take her far away from the ogre of Orkney. She would be no monster's bride. And as the emergency played out at the homes for the slightly less agile, Tara awoke with a start. Where had she just gone? She recalled standing outside and looking in the window of that guy she had followed the other day. She had no idea how she had gotten there, or even how she had really gone anywhere. But this wasn't the first time that she had teleported or astral projected herself to someone she really liked. She wondered if Ben had seen her too. Chapter 9, Lupo Sante. When Ben finally reached the homes for the slightly less agile, there were flashing lights and a hubbub of activity. He didn't have a good feeling about this one. He parked haphazardly and was just in time to see Edwina being rolled out to the waiting ambulance on a gurney. "Mother, what happened?" He was perplexed. "I told you, Ben," she said quietly, still feigning the purported heart pain. "Remember what I said the last time we talked? I'm not going anywhere against my better judgment." She lay back and allowed the paramedic to pull the thin blanket around her. Tessalak didn't have a large hospital, so Edwina would be whisked away to Count Clarny Hospital over an hour away. "She'll be fine," the paramedic said with a sly grin to Ben as they rushed around picking up their gear. "She's stable for now if you want to meet us at the hospital." Ben, too tired to object and even more tired of Edwina's tricks, walked slowly back to the car, pondering his next move. If he didn't show up at the hospital for this farce, then Edwina would never let him live that one down. But if he did show up, then he'd be stuck in Clarny until tomorrow. His cell rang and he saw Zachary's name pop up. Where had that guy been, he wondered. The impending storm that had been blowing in had seemed to have stalled somewhere further offshore. Ben answered, thankful to be hearing from his friend. Zachary's voice, though, was taut, and he strained to get the words out. Ben, come if you can, he said, a little disjointed. You've got to see what I found out on Thin Point Island. Ben was torn. What should he do? Rush over to Zachary's to see this mysterious find for himself? Drive the hour to Count Clarny Hospital to find Edwina reading a book and knitting in her hospital bed safe from her so-called boogeyman? Or just simply drive home and crawl into bed, pulling the covers up and hope for a better tomorrow? Chapter 10. It's time. The bees hummed happily in the hives. Both Tara and Ben were wondering what they needed next in their lives. What would happen in the future? So many wishes and dreams coming up in the last 24 hours to be pondering and adjusting. Ben had decided not to go to Zachary's and had a fitful night's sleep full of weird and fantastic dreams. The one he couldn't shake was of him arm in arm with someone he had never met before. He felt so happy and comfortable with this person. Tara had also had a night of sudden awakening and odd portents in her sleep. When she dreamt, it was a combination of her light work, astral traveling, and of things to come. And she too had dreamt of being arm in arm with someone she felt so comfortable with. But who was it? She couldn't see the face in the dream, but she felt she had known this person before. Oh, there we go again, these past life things. The bees. She had to tend the bees this morning. It was time to harvest honey, and she didn't want to miss the morning energy of the hives. It made her feel so alive. Ben had also been neglecting his hives. Such was the busy lifestyle he'd been leading. He longed for his life to be slower and more comfortable, but he knew that would mean making some changes. He wasn't uncomfortable with change. He had just gotten a little set in his ways as the cheery bachelor with too much money to spend and no one to share it with. He called Zachary to apologize for standing him up, but there was no answer. He never knew with that guy, and he made a note to check in with him later. Edwina sat up in bed, having one of the best night's sleep in a while since this whole ogre of Orkney thing had started. When Ben rang her phone, she cheerfully picked up the line. "Hello, darling. How are you?" she said with her happiest smile. "I did it, Ben." "What, Mother? You did what?" He was prepared for some news story or happening that might need his attention. "I broke the curse of the ogre. You couldn't come to me on the third night, and so now..." Oh, he couldn't come to me. He couldn't come to me on the third night, and so now he must move on. Ben winced at the ogre story again, but Edwina knew she had saved herself from a cruel fate. She was a little sad that Ben hadn't believed her, but she was even more happy that she had trusted her intuition and inner guidance and took action as her angels had directed her. Ben, happy that Edwina was feeling better, offered to come pick her up in Clarny when they released her from the hospital. They had found nothing wrong with her, she told Ben, other than a little anxiety that a dose of Valium could easily take care of. Ben winced again at the mention of the drug and vowed not to touch pharmaceuticals again unless it was an emergency. He put on his bee-tending clothes and headed outside, happy to have some time to himself to tend the hives. Visions of the woman in his dreams and the soft, comfortable, loving feeling he felt in her presence intensified as he worked with the hives. The bees wanted him to do something, but he wasn't sure what. And then it came to him. A small worker bee perched on his arm, and Ben felt himself receiving a message. "Go get more honey jars." The message was loud and clear as the little worker bee flew back to the inner sanctity of the hive. And just as he thought, he realized he was out of honey jars and decided he needed to stop at Hive and Barrows for his favorite gift jars. And as this was happening, a small worker bee was flying around Tara's head, all abuzz about the newest Hive gift ideas at Hive and Barrows that she must go check out for herself. Tara thanked the bee and felt herself gently nudged to get dressed up and go into town. She felt something really big was about to happen. Chapter 11. in your dreams. Tara took her basket and decided to ride her bike to the center of town where Hive and Barrow sat next to Harry O'Malley's Animal Emporium. She felt so alive today as the wind whipped through her hair and the freedom of the bike went downhill and uphill to several miles to the town center. Tessa Lock was a small community with a big heart. Its sister city, Rockaway Point, was the antithesis of the small-town atmosphere with its larger population and many more small businesses and town activities. Overall, the two cities made a great place to visit or to go out for an afternoon tea or antiquing quest. Tara reached the town square just as Ben was parking the Austin Healey in the shop's parking zone. Mildred, the meter maid, would be on him again if he parked and didn't put the appropriate coins in the meter. She was pretty tough about it, and Ben was sure that her strict diligence came from her mother's side of the family. The O'Malleys, Mrs. O'Malley in particular, had brought up their large family to be pillars of the town's ancient ancestry. And the O'Malleys could trace their roots back to Sir Galahad. Well, that's another story for now. Ben pushed the coins into the meter, and with 50 minutes on the clock, he'd have enough time to take care of his errands. He picked up the small basket of honey with sage and lemon zest, his gift to Patsy at Hive and Barrow for the great service she always provided. He walked swiftly along the paved pathway to the shop just as Tara was parking her bicycle outside the front door. She was singing some tune about wistful ladies waiting for their sea captain to come home. She wasn't paying attention to her surroundings. Rather, she was singing and almost skipping along towards the door. She lost her footing as she tripped over the little friendship rocks that Patsy had hand-painted herself and placed outside. She was slowly, and it felt like slow motion to her, falling sideways and trying to catch herself on the door handle when from behind a strong set of arms caught her fall. She felt that same dreamy, steamy, comfortable feeling she had had in her dreams the last few nights. And as Ben reached out his arms to catch the falling girl, honey basket and jars dropping to the ground, he too felt the same dreamy, floaty, comfortable feeling he'd felt in his dreams the past several nights. "Oh my goodness," Tara said, embarrassed to be caught like this. "Are you all right?" Ben said, riding her so she was standing to face him. Yes, I believe so," Tara said, instantly transported to a place far away. This is my son in the background. Just let it roll. She knew this person in front of her from somewhere. "Do I know you?" she said, feeling that this was a silly thank you for someone who had so gallantly swept in to save her fall. "I'm not sure," Ben said, feeling more comfortable than he had in some time. "My name's Ben." "I'm Tara," she said, feeling very safe here. "Shall we go inside?" Ben said, picking up his basket. "I need honey jars." "So do I," Tara said with a smile. And the message, the end of this little mini story is, it's not okay to just sit still and wait. Sometimes you are guided to wait, to sit silently and allow things to come. Now, however, you have all you need to succeed. The downloads received, the messages heard. There's no more confirmation, no need for additional words. Just take what you know and what you've received and get moving. Take action and manifest what you need. I'm trying to listen to see if I can hear what he's singing. I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly what it is. Anyway, that is the end of our little Beltane story. It's just perfect for right now, and I hope that you received either many confirmations, messages, or portents of things to come. May you all be divinely blessed, and we will see you around in the interwebs, either on YouTube, on my podcast, which is at all major podcast providers, or over on Instagram or Facebook, where I'm everywhere I'm at is TLC for the Soul. And we've been doing some fun, different things over on Instagram and Facebook, if you feel like joining me there. And if not, then I will see you somewhere in the astrals at TLC for the Soul. Take care. This episode has been brought to you by Buns and Such, Tessa Lock's premium bakery and workout bar. Visit anytime during the week and enjoy a free mini workout session and chocolate-filled donut. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you again soon.